money is a tool to get you the experiences that you're looking for. And I feel like health is a tool. It's a tool to get you the experiences.
What if everything you're working so hard to build, your wealth, your freedom, your retirement, could be taken away by one silent threat, your health? Today's guest, Stevyn Guinnip, knows this truth firsthand. After surviving a personal health crisis, Stevyn discovered that money without health isn't security, it's risk. As an author, health coach, and international speaker, and the founder of Grow Wellthy, Stevyn helps financial advisors and families reframe health as the ultimate retirement multiplier. By merging exercise physiology with deep financial insight, she shows us how to extend not just lifespan, but health span. If you believe true wealth is living well longer, this conversation may change how you think about money, health, and the life you're building starting today. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, I'm with Stevyn Guinnip, founder of Grow Wellthy, and I am super excited for this conversation. Welcome to the show, Stevyn.
Thank you so much, Larry. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So listen, we're going to spend a lot of time on what you're doing today with Grow Wellthy. But before we dive into that and what you're doing now, our listeners, they're always fascinated with the entrepreneurial journey, although, sometimes very different, sometimes similar, not a straight path usually. But can you share with our audience or our listeners a bit about who you are and how you got to founding Grow Wellthy? And then we'll spend a lot of time on what you're doing today.
Sure. Yes. It started when I was 11 years old. And my father became a financial advisor and picked up our family and moved us to Arkansas. And I got to see him build his business. And I got to go on trips and I got to meet colleagues. And I was like, oh, wow, this is the financial industry. I was, watching it from the sidelines, like a fly on the wall, but I got to understand it. And then I started working in his front desk and I started understanding that retirees like to save a lot of money for their retirement. And then they were getting too sick to enjoy their retirement. And I was like, this isn't right. They've got all this money, but they don't have the health. So I went and became an exercise physiologist and did that for 20 years, thinking I could help people have better retirements from a health perspective. And that didn't work so well when I ended up myself in the ER and almost died of sepsis and found out that exercise is not the answer to a happy retirement either. It's much more comprehensive than that with pieces I had been missing. So I was like, hey, let's start this business and address this intersection between health and wealth and what actually makes a great retirement. So I started Grow Wellthy. Play on words, obviously.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm sorry about your health issues, but it also sounds like you had, this entrepreneurial spirit through your dad that was kind of with you from a very early age. Was it something that you kind of always saw yourself as going down the entrepreneurial journey at some point, or did it just come up because of life circumstances?
It's funny, as you say that, I'm imagining myself in fifth grade. And I remember sitting at my desk doodling between classes, and I was drawing a picture of a semi truck with my name on it. And I was like, I was going to deliver something to someone, and it was my business. But I don't know what it was. And I always have been an idea person. Like, oh, let's try this. Oh, that could be a business. Oh, and one of the most exciting things I can see on a road trip is a for sale sign on a business. I'm like, oh, there's an opportunity there. So I think it's just in my blood a bit.
Yeah. That's like me with real estate. When I see for sale signs on real estate, my wife's like, no, we're not stopping. Yeah. So, what was the moment for you that you realized that, this health and wealth were so intertwined with, which, by the way, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. It's a fine balance. And that's why we talk a lot about building a life, around joy, because, as I share, and I'll share with you, my mom passed away at the age of 47. And I talk very often about how if her and my dad just simply saved away and squirreled every dime away for retirement, for some unforeseen time in the future, they would never have gotten to enjoy life. And my mom wouldn't have ever been able to see any of that retirement. So I'm with you. I think they're so intertwined. What was the moment that you realized that they were so intertwined in that way?
There are a couple that come to mind. I guess that first of all, as I hear you talking, I mean, I've watched your podcast or watched your videos on YouTube, and there's a definite alignment here. And I think we're on the same page is that life is experiences. And we can retire on money and we can retire on experiences. We can have memories. It's really just money as a tool to get you the experiences that you're looking for. And I feel like health is a tool. That's really all it is. It's a tool to get you the experiences. So if I love to go float fishing or climb up this bluff to jump off, or if I like to hike in the hills of Madeira where I live, I have to have the health to do that. But the first time I remember noticing it was as a teenager on a bus in Scotland. The big wig of the financial advisor event was there. And he was the epitome of what everybody wanted for success. He had the title, he had the money, he had the position, all of it was there. Everyone was wanting to be him someday. And he, after we left this event in Scotland, was slumped on the bus. And somehow we ended up sitting next to each other. And he was just like, he was just like slumped and alone. He's got bad news. I don't know why he was telling me this, but he's like, I just got bad news from my doctor. He didn't have a spouse or kids there. He had estranged relationships. And then that was the first moment I was like, what is success? What is it? Is this success? Because if this is it, I don't really want it. And that was my first kind of interaction with the idea that your health, even your relationships, your purpose, all of those things are so tied closely to your money. Then I started working for my dad in his front office, and we would get to know his clients. We'd go to their weddings, to their funerals, and celebrate life with them. And I got to know some of them, and they had plenty of money. They had done all the things right for retirement. But when they got to retirement, sometimes they would only have one good year, or they would get sick and die, or they would be stuck at home and not be able to go on the trips they had planned for. And I thought, what a waste. They thought they were doing everything right, but their body can't keep up with the lifestyle that they had dreamed of. And so I was, kind of trying to decide, well, do you live life now when you can? Can you responsibly do both? How can you protect this health asset? I didn't call it that at the time, but I recognized it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, we're getting half the story here, half the tools that we need for a really successful life and retirement. And it dawned on me enough to go become an exercise physiologist. I got my master's degree and worked in NIH, National Institutes of Health. I did research. I did all these cardiovascular things. And I was like, okay, now everybody, if we just get them exercising, they'll be healthy and then they'll have these great retirements. And it was more about like sets and reps and cardio training zones than it was. And that's like today. That's the moment when I finally realized that your health is built over decades and not days. It's like this moment of like, oh, that's what money is. You can't get rich overnight. You can't wait. You can't do these high risk, get rich quick schemes. And then when I started really looking at it, I was like, oh my goodness, the skills that you need to grow wealth over time is small, consistent compounding activities, right? And the skills you need to grow health is the same. And if you can mitigate your risk and enhance and protect and grow your assets and have a long-term plan and start early, and that it just blended so well in my mind. And that's when I started the company.
Sounds like the aha moment was right there, and resonates with me. I mean, you talk about unlimited health or unlimited wealth, right? I feel like, when you're younger, you have this, air of nothing can hurt me. My health is fantastic. And then, as we tend to get older, our health, there's more of a question mark. Wealth, we might be working towards. But why is it such a powerful thing for people to start looking at this when they're younger?
Yes. I call it the big swap, right? So you start life with no money and you slowly accumulate assets as you go through life. And then you start life, most people start with pretty good health and they hold on to their health in their younger years and they take it for granted. And they're just like, I'm healthy. I've always been healthy. I'll always be healthy. And they just don't realize it because they never had to work for it. But all the while, it's slowly eroding and they're swapping about midlife, 40s and 50s, where you have the most amount of money and your health starts to tank. And so if you wait until you realize it, you've already lost so much of the health that you could have preserved when you were younger. When you've got hormones on your side, muscle mass, energy, you sleep like a log anywhere you go, like use that and keep and build the health that you've got and then just protect it fiercely. And people kind of stay up too late and stress out and eat junk and do things that their body is really struggling to recover from. And eventually it just grows overwhelmed and weary, and cells and systems start to break down. So if you can think of it as protect what I've got, then you're investing like a 401k in your future, like a retirement account.
Like you said, I think you have to take the same kind of approach to growing wealth, to growing and maintaining your health. They're equally vitally important because, without one or without the other, they're inextricably tied together, and you can't enjoy either one if you don't have both. So I think that's so important. Now, you wrote a book about this, Grow Wellthy, right?
I did.
What do you hope readers will learn from your book?
Well, Larry, I'm going to grab the book here. I've got it right here. And I'll read the subtitle because this is what I want them to take away. Here's what the book looks like, Grow Wellthy. And it's a 4-step plan to protect your health like an asset. That's the whole point, is if you can start to see your health not as a silo that is something that you do to look good in your clothes or to run faster, but it's an asset for life, just like your money is, just like your business is, your relationships, and you can figure out how to think of it that way, then every drink or bite of food or late night or the things that you do that might be eroding your health, you can start to protect it more and keep more of it over time. And so the point was, number one, just to tell people, hey, look at your health differently. Think of it like money, right? Then secondly, what do you do? Because there's so much conflicting information out there from Instagram reels and all the things that people don't know where to start. And so it's like, let's give you a hook to hang health on. And the hook to hang health on is 4 steps. It's a hierarchy of wealth. It tells you what to do first, second, third, and fourth. There's 4 steps. And basically, when someone's like, you came to me 30 years ago when I was just getting started in the industry of health, and you're like, hey, I want to be healthy, I'd be like, okay, you need to get to the gym, you need to do these squats and this sets and these reps. And I would start right into exercise, and then maybe I'd throw a little nutrition in there. Okay, now I realized I was missing 2 levels, and one of them is the mindset level. That's like, first of all, see your health as an asset. Secondly, know your numbers. What's your trend, right? Know the data, get the data that you need, whether it's through a wearable or you go to get some lab work through your doctor or whatever. And then, and when I say a wearable, I mean like a watch or an Oura ring or something like that. You can test your sleep and your steps. And then the next level up is the mending stage. That's like, can you afford your life? Are you putting too much out and not recovering enough when you sleep, giving yourself enough margin? And a lot of people, especially business owners, people in finance, people who own and grow and run businesses like you and I, we're putting a lot out there, and we're not necessarily prioritizing the recovery piece that we need. So I say, think of it as like paying your sleep and stress bills, right? You use it all in during the day, and you've got to pay it back at night. And that's when you get your sleep. And so that's mend. And then meals is number 3, which is like, okay, once you've got a good foundation, know what you're doing, and you're well rested, let's start making some good food choices. And then the last level, which is weird for me as an exercise physiologist, but it's the last level, is exercise, or what I would call move, because they're all M's: mindset, mend, meals, and move. And that's, let's do some movement, not to lose weight, not to punish yourself for the cookie you ate, but to invest in your future so you can get up off the floor, you can stay independent, you can go on the hikes you like to do, and have the capacity to live the life you want.
Great. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great takeaways in the book. So I encourage people to go out, read it, implement it, more importantly, because it doesn't help you if you just read it. You have to start actually implementing it. I think it's extremely helpful for people who are looking to align their health and their wealth. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
A healthy person has a million dreams. They want to do this, do that. They have goals. And a sick person really only has one. to make sure that they get well.
Right.
How do you think we can close the gap between what you call health span and sick span? Because I think it's very important to close that gap.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to stop talking about lifespan as the end all be all. How long do you think you're going to live? Let's make sure we have enough money till your last breath, and start thinking more nuanced and more realistically around health span. I think if people can make that shift in their mind, then they can understand that living 20 more years and feeling terrible and being sick and wishing you had your health back is not as great as having a longer health span and kind of squishing that sick span into what I would say live long and die short. Right? Like, let's just get the most, suck the bone marrow out of life. We just watched the movie Dead Poets Society, and that's one of the things that he said is suck the bone marrow out of life. Let's get the most out of it. And so, trying to understand that your lifespan is going to be chopped into two pieces. Now, there's going to be a little bit of, spread or bleed into the areas. But basically, there's a time when you're healthy and you're independent, and then there's a time when you need medication or intervention, or you can't do the things that you want to do. So do the things now to extend that health span. And I think that's going to impact the wishes and dreams that you have for your life.
Yeah, I think that's a great delineation because I think a lot of people think about what their lifespan's going to be, but they don't put a lot of thought into, well, okay, if I live till 94, great. But at the same time, do I want to just live to 94 to live to 94 and not be healthy and be in pain and, not be as mobile? And I think the answer to that question for most people is no. So I think we have to redirect that thought process to, like you said, is what's my health span? What does that look like? And how does that overlap or play into or bleed into the lifespan question, right?
Right. And like, where are you going to spend your money? Is it going to be on
Right.
getting more mobility tools in your home and I don't know, reorganizing your house so a wheelchair can fit in, and that's what you're going to spend your money on? Or is it going to be on that trip or that hobby or that thing that you want to go and do? And so the allocation of those resources go to two very different places depending on what and your health is the decider. And it's like,
Right.
well, you can't remove all risk, right? Health is its own
Right.
beast. It's its own
Yep.
risky wild card. But we do know that 80% of chronic diseases are within our control. And that's pretty good odds for us to try to do something to at least influence that.
I agree. Let's pause for a moment. What actually brings you joy? It's something most people never think about, yet it shapes how your life unfolds. You're busy. You make responsible choices. You even plan ahead. But have you slowed down long enough to ask if what you're building supports a life you enjoy living? That's the reason I built my YouTube channel, to help you bring more joy to your money journey. Sure, we'll talk about all the essentials, but my real goal is to help you connect your finances with what brings you joy, because money is the tool that funds the moments that matter. If you want to explore that connection more deeply, visit my YouTube channel at Larry Sprung. When you were talking about the 4M method, I found it interesting. You made a point and very strategically, put the movement after the meals, and that really resonated with me because after I read Good Energy by Casey Means, I really took a hard look at what I was eating. And, my eyes were kind of really wide open or pulled open in terms of stuff that I was eating that I thought was healthy that really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it really opened my eyes to how much food impacts our bodies and how much of, disease and that 20% or that 80% you mentioned, could impact us. And I think food is a big part of that 80%. How do you help people see food as fuel in terms of, what you're putting into your bodies? Because I think that's an area that, really doesn't get talked about a lot. I think, again, going back to your experiences, a lot of people are talked to about exercising. Exercising will right the ship for everything. And I think you'd agree that that's not necessarily true, because if you're not feeding your body with the right fuel, you can you can exercise all you want. You're not going to exercise that away.
Right. Well, food is complicated because it has so many emotions and feelings, traditions, things like that that are tied up in the food that we eat. And so it's important to understand that we need to see food as a fuel, but we also need to see food as a tax. Okay.
Okay.
So food is a fuel versus food is a tax. Food that's a fuel, it gives you something. It gives you energy. It gives you building blocks to do the things that you need to do and to repair the cells and build the muscles that you need. But food is a tax. That would be the things that are making your body have to work harder to recover from the things that you ate. So the bag of potato chips, the alcohol, the soda, the things like that, that your body, your liver is like, help, you're overwhelming me, right? So I feel like if you can kind of put food in two general categories, is this going to fuel me, or is this going to be another tax on the health I already have? It's going to erode more of my health, and I have to recover then more from that. Now, if it's holidays or birthdays or special events, we should live through those and have wonderful experiences with the food taxes. But we should just know this is a tax and it's not fuel, and I need to recover from it and add a little extra care. So to me, and by the way, Good Energy, I love that book. I love her story. I love the fact that she's pushing the 5 metabolic health markers of the things that only 8% of the US population at least has, these 5 metabolic health markers. And it's something that you can read in my book, you can read in her book, it's all over, but really trying to earn those back. 80% of weight loss will go there is on the end of your fork. It's not exercise. If you're exercising to lose weight, it's a poor return on your investment. But none of that happens unless you're fully recovered. So there's definitely this hierarchy of order that we have to follow. And food is so, so important, from both get the good stuff in, but make sure that you don't have the bad stuff crowding out the good stuff. And there's an app I love that's called the Daily Dozen. It's free, and you can go in and you can just like try to get as many of the good things in and watch how it naturally crowds out some of the things that are more taxy on your health.
Interesting. All right. We'll have to include that in the show notes,
Yeah.
because I'm not familiar with that, but I will definitely check out the Daily Dozen. And I think, the only thing I would add is from my own personal experience is, there are things that you might be eating or drinking that you feel are healthy, but when you look at the label, they're not. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was drinking at one point a shake every morning with almond milk, and I got what I thought was the healthy almond milk. And after I read the book, I realized I didn't have the healthy almond milk, because there were like 14 or 15 ingredients in the one I was drinking. And then I ended up moving after the book to one that had basically almonds, water, and salt in it.
Wow.
The crazy thing was the two were made by the same company. They look the same, but there was a distinct difference in what the ingredients are. So make it a point to look a little bit further, because you may be thinking you're eating healthy, but you may not. And there may be an alternative that's just as tasty that might provide more health benefits or less health issues as a result.
I was just talking to a client about this today, actually. And she's like, Stephen, I had no idea. Like, I was eating these sunflower seeds, and I thought they just had salt on them. So like, what's a little salt? That's no problem. But she said, when I started looking at the ingredients, I realized that they were cooked, had seed oils in them. So it was sunflower oil or safflower oil or one of those oils that's not good for your body and is a tax. And she's like, I never would have known. Or you pick up some bread and you're like, oh, it's whole grain bread. It's got whole grains in it. And you don't realize, if you look at the label and the carb to fiber ratio is poor, it's going to skyrocket your blood sugar, cause all your insulin to have to come in and save the day. And then you're going to become insulin resistant over time. And then you'll be pre-diabetic and not even know it, even if you're not overweight, even if you don't eat candy, right? So, and just to, I don't want to leave your listeners hanging, but if your carbohydrates, so you look at total carbohydrates on the nutrition label and it says 20, and then you look at fiber and it says 1, your carb to fiber ratio is a 20-1, and that's not good. It's too high. So if you can have like 20-5, right? So it's a 4-1 ratio. So check your labels, know what's in it. Fiber's good. Lots of ingredients that you can't pronounce are bad.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So what do you think is the most common misconception about the health journey?
I think the most misinterpreted is that you have to do more. I have to eliminate, I have to punish, I have to be disciplined and have self-will and all these things that you just are like have to always do more. It's more checklists, it creates more anxiety, it creates more things to do, and then you feel like a failure. You feel guilty. And I think if people realize that if you give yourself the curiosity and awareness, which is the mindset piece, to say, all right, where am I? And what would it be like if? Curiosity goes far further than guilt and punishment and driving yourself forward that way. And then the second thing is just like get the rest that you need. I can't tell you the number of people that come to me and they're just so used to hustling. They don't know how to slow down, how to protect their sleep, how to have a few moments to themselves to do nothing. And when those happen, then eating and exercise becomes so much easier. So you don't have to force the eating on a diet and you don't have to force going to the gym. If you start with those other two pieces, then the top two layers actually become so much easier.
Yeah. As you were talking about the like the pain around like eating and exercising and things like that, I was thinking there's such a similarity to like when you talk to a family about budgeting. They
Yeah.
feel like that is such an overwhelming thing, painful. It feels like you're going to shame them because we're going to say, "Oh, you shouldn't be spending money there. You should be spending money there." And we share with them that at the end of the day, we're not here to make decisions or, accusations against where they should or shouldn't be spending money. We want to make the exercise as simple as possible. So
Mhm.
you could be as simplistic as how much money is coming in each month, how much money is going out, and is there a surplus or deficit? If there's a surplus, what am I doing to reallocate those funds in other directions that'll help me? And if there's a deficit, how do I work towards alleviating myself of that deficit? Are there things in my budget that don't bring me joy? Then maybe I should get rid of those. If there are things that bring me joy, are they absolutely necessary? If so, leave them and figure out that problem. We don't have to make it this complicated, issue that you're going to feel bad about. It should be something that empowers you over time. And it sounds very similar to what you're saying on the health side.
Absolutely. We just had a conversation. We do something called Hear from a Peer, where somebody shares their journey. And someone was sharing, and she's like, "Oh, comfort foods.
Yeah.
Comfort foods just make me feel so good." And she goes, "But what's changed in the last year for her is that her comfort foods used to be the things that were, quote, bad, that gave her comfort from stress, and she deserved it." She goes, "It's been a complete flip now. My comfort foods are the things that make me feel good." Right? That the next day
Great
I wake up
example.
feeling great. And so, when we started looking at, okay, if you have 2 glasses of wine at night, it feels good and you enjoy that, but then you have a terrible night's sleep and we watch the sleep stats drop and you feel kind of grumpy and off the next day. One isn't right or wrong. You get to decide which feel good you want. It's your choice.
Right.
We just put the evidence in front of you and then you make your informed decision. And that
Yeah.
it really just brings down the walls and people are like, everyone wants the best life for themselves. And when they have the good data without the guilt, then it makes it so much easier for them to navigate the best choice.
Yeah, such a great example. Really is. So, we like leaving takeaways for our listeners. So, is there, a tip you would like our listeners to take away from today? If didn't none of this resonated up into this point, what's one small thing that will impact them long term that you would like them to take away from today's conversation?
If I could start one place with every person, it would be their nighttime routine. So the hour before bed, set an alarm. turn off the screens, go take a shower, a hot bath, do some stretching, review your day, see how things went, whatever it is that makes you feel good, pet the dog, play a game, just do something that's going to really make you feel like you've got a good handle on that night, because every good day starts with a great night the night before. And it's just teeing up a great morning and a great eating day, because when we're tired, we eat poorly. We don't want to go exercise. We're more grumpy. We're more lethargic. And so everything, like if you've read Atomic Habits or any of these books that talk about one good habit that can kind of trigger a bunch of other good ones, that nighttime routine is super important. So I would just encourage the person listening to this to say, what time do I want to go to bed? What would be a good buffered period for me to kind of prep in that direction and get those screens out of my eyes so that my melatonin can surge. I can get into the deep sleeps. That's where you burn fat, is in the deep sleep. That's where you repair your brain. When I interviewed 500 professionals for the book. And when I talked to them, the number one thing they were afraid of was dementias or Alzheimer's when they were aging. And sleep is one of the best things you can do to actually prevent that or reduce the risk, right? So plus maintain body weight and mental attitude. So anyway, that's where I would say start tonight.
All right. So start that routine. Use James Clear from Atomic Habits, the habit stacking, stack one after another, get on a roll and roll right into a great, deep, restorative sleep. Sounds amazing.
Yes.
So Stevyn, it's been a pleasure having you on, and we end our show by asking our guests all the same final question, and people wait in anticipation of what their answers are. So we're going to do the same for you.
Okay.
And that is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
So this morning I got up and I turned on your podcast with Derek Kinney. And I listened to that and I got such joy out of it. I was listening to the podcast, but I could imagine what Derek might be wearing. And I loved the conversation you had. And he created a course for teens and confidence that my teens took. And they went out and got a really cool shirt from the same company that he uses. And it just spread so much joy for me to see a full circle where you are investing in people to make their lives better. Derek is investing even in my own family, my own kids, and people listening here, and the work that you and I are talking about and how it just can expand and touch so many people. It just brought me a lot of joy.
Amazing. Derek's one of my favorite people. I'm hopefully able to see him in a couple of weeks. I usually see him every couple of months, but
Nice.
I agree. And you could always spot him in a crowd because of his very colorful shirts.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm actually trying to emulate my inner Derek. I've been trying to wear Travis Matthews shirts on every podcast recording as inspiration from Derek. So, and it's failing me at the moment who the designer of his shirts are, but hopefully he'll comment below when this show comes out. But
yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Stevyn. It's been a pleasure having you on, and we'll have all of your information and the information of Grow Wellthy in the show notes. But if people want to learn more, connect with you, have questions, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
I think the best one-stop shop is go to LinkedIn and follow me there, because I put posts out every day. If you want my book or you want to take the health quiz or you want any further information, the links are all there too. But go to Stevyn Guinnip on LinkedIn and just reach out and connect with me. Send me a message.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the time, Stevyn. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
If today's conversation with Stevyn Guinnip sparks something inside you, it's because it speaks to a truth we often avoid. Wealth means very little if our health can't support the life we're trying to live. Stevyn reminds us that the real goal isn't just a longer life, but a better one. One where energy, clarity, and purpose last as long as our financial plans. When we protect our health with the same intention we protect our money, everything changes how we age, how we show up, and how we experience freedom. This is the Midlife Money Mindset, where money becomes a tool, health becomes the multiplier, and living well is the ultimate return on investment. Stevyn Guinnip and Grow Wellthy can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.